Hold up.
Every day I wake up, wake your ass up.
The Breakfast Club.
Y'all finished or y'all done?
Morning, everybody. It's DJ, Envy, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the guy. We are the Breakfast Club. Loren LoRosa is here as well. And we got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
We have Laura Coates. Welcome.
Hey. Thank you. Happy to be here, y'all. Thank you.
Welcome.
What time do you wake up, Laura? Because
What
the
time
show
I
go
go to
off at
bed?
midnight, right?
I go to bed midnight. I go to bed probably by 2 a.m.
Okay.
Up by 6.
Wow.
Nice.
I have babies. I call them baby because that's why I have baby weight. So it's 11 and 12-year-olds.
Okay.
Therefore, I'm up with them, getting them ready, or trying to, or piddling around like an old person, trying to figure out how to start my day. But I can't sleep long any longer. I can't.
Why?
It just ended.
Is it because your brain is always wired to be a part of like the news cycle?
I'm constantly thinking. Like last night, I think I got an hour and a half of sleep because my mind could not. You can't really come down because for me, I'm always navigating minefields. You all know how it is. And so when you're constantly sort of being your own champion, being a businesswoman, navigating minefields, then obviously trying to educate and inform, your mind can't shut off very well. And so I'm always battling with how to do my go-to-bed routine. I mean, I'll do like the bath. I'll watch some Golden Girls, but it still takes some time.
You take naps at least?
I do. No, I can like
naps
not
is
go
what keeps me
upset.
alive.
Oh my God. If you told me right now you have an hour, I'd be knocked out right now. I can do that quick.
I'm like that, so I can fall asleep immediately. Like,
Yes.
and then wake right up and ready to go.
I have not seen one of those safety things on the plane in like years.
Damn, you're
Like,
asleep before they even
Before
do
they
that
even,
part?
I haven't had a pretzel in a decade. No Sprite
get
with
sleep
or
when I
without
can.
ice. Doesn't matter. I can't help it. I can't help it. I do it.
How you turn it off and on with your kids though? Because like sometimes they just want mom that's just about to chill. We want to go to the beach, whatever.
My kids don't care at all about the work. For me, I'm very intentional because, look, I wanted to be a mom. I really wanted to be a mother, and I wanted to be their mother in particular. And so I have to be present. And really, if you don't sort of leave work, when I'm not working, my mind might be racing, but if I'm with my babies or with my man, that's it. Like I'm with them. That's all there is to it. And so they try to come with me a lot, though. That's how I try to incorporate. My daughter comes every Friday night to the show and becomes my producer. She's 11. She's taller than me now. My son, he plays basketball, and so I'm always trying to be with him when he's on the
Your daughter's
on
11
the
and
road.
taller than you?
I'm 5'3" and a half.
Okay.
Daddy might
And a
be
half.
tall.
I was asking 11
He's
for
5'4".
11.
Oh, wow.
My nickname as a kid was Baby Huey. I'm the tallest in my family.
It ain't even that baby girl was big.
Baby Huey. So I had to have a strong
God.
ego to counteract that because my mom is 4'11", my dad's 5'4", and they're like, "How you get so big?" And I'm like, "I'm 5'3" and a half." But that half,
Means
That means
everything.
something.
the half.
So hold on, you used to be a federal prosecutor, right?
I did.
I want to go back from the beginning. How
Sure.
you went to college for law, clearly.
Yep.
Okay. What school?
I went to Princeton
Okay.
for undergrad. I'm from Minnesota. I went back to Minnesota for law school. I didn't think I was going to be a prosecutor, honestly. I thought that I was going to go into the law, and I thought, at the time you think, oh, corporate law, and that's some kind of nebulous term or whatever that means. But really, I knew I was going to become in criminal law and probably a prosecutor when the whole Kemba Smith story came out back in it was like the 90s. Emerge magazine, remember that?
Yeah.
And she was a young black woman from Virginia who had met the wrong man, had gotten accused of being a drug mule.
That's what they had.
Right. And my mom brought home the magazine. There's 3 of us. And she's like, "Girls, I want you to read this as a cautionary tale." And I think what she wanted as a mom was for me to see like the idea of what type of man to get involved with.
Explain the story of what happened to Kim
Okay.
and the time she got so people understand the whole thing. I was there, so I know.
Oh, were
but-
you?
Mhm.
Wow. So
Yes, he's
kindred
47.
spirits.
He
There you
travels a
go.
lot.
That was 47.
Damn.
Look, wow, I'm 45.
You know she do not like
skin's good.
telling how old she is.
Who? Kemba.
He said, "She." I thought don't misgender me, man.
I'm sorry, I'm
don't
sorry.
misgender me.
I'm sorry.
But
I
go
mean,
ahead.
They be picking on me, so I be picking on them back.
I saw the Amazon thing, so I was here. I was
Okay.
here for it.
Thank
I saw
you.
it. I saw
you,
it.
Laura.
So I
Only black
understand.
women in the room.
Well, Kemba, so she was a college girl. The world was her oyster.
That's right.
Long story short, she meets a man who is manipulative and convinces her to get involved in crime. She doesn't think she's getting involved in crime. She thinks she's just kind of carrying something for someone and doing what she thinks she's supposed to be doing. But it wasn't. And while he got sort of a slap on the wrist, she got the book thrown at her. She became the example of, what goes wrong in this sort of crazy, mischievous Black woman coming into this town, and she deserves everything she gets.
What color was the man? I need to know.
Black.
They're black.
So I don't.
Virginia's a
why?
Commonwealth state. They
Virginia.
kind of make up their rules, laws, and regulations.
When you say slap
Yeah.
on the wrist for him, how much time did he get?
I don't think he got much time at all. I think he got she was in there for years. And the sad thing was, of course, as Black women, as Black people, as young women, as young people, we can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't get the idea of, I understand, I see myself in you. Therefore, let me try to get you on the straight and narrow yet again and give you a chance again at life. So when my mom sent the article to us and showed us, her, I think, role for us was, listen, this is the tale of what not to do in terms of the type of people you associate yourself with. But my take on it was, this was a prosecutorial error. This was somebody who refused to see themselves in another human being. And therefore, this young woman was going to serve life, or not life, but serve her life at that time with that burden on her back. And so when I realized in law school what I wanted to do, I had her in mind. I've met her since and talked to her about this, and we've shared some tears about what it's like to really be a prosecutor, because you have this responsibility. It's overwhelming. You're human, you're flawed, there's no resources that are going to be able to provide for all that you have to do. And yet you have someone's life in your hand, their entire life, not just their life, but people in the courtroom who were their kids who were there, their loved ones, their parents who were there. And it was a time, it wore on me, even though I thought what I was doing, and I still believe, was the right thing.
Wow.
She got 24 years.
She was let out.
And she was let out. She only
Yeah.
did 6, but she got 24 years.
So as a former federal prosecutor, how do you balance explaining the law for everyday viewers without losing the complexity of what law is?
I think you don't understand something unless you can explain it to a child, right? There's a phrase, and when I was in trials, and I did a lot of trials, it was never use a $20 word when a quarter word will do, right? You want to talk to people and meet them where they are, not because they know less intellectually, but or they're not as smart, but because you and I would never sit here and say the door was ajar. The door was open.
Yeah.
Like, I gave chase. Did you mean you ran somewhere?
Right.
Because you want people to understand what's happening. And I think there's an elitism with vocabulary where people want to show that they're smart, to distance themselves from you, to make sure you see them above you and that they can no longer participate in the system. And the longer people feel like, well, I don't get it, so therefore I'm hands off, their reflex is, well, I don't care about that. It's rigged. It's a whole game of the system. That was the point. They want people to not participate. They want people not to understand. And we have an elitism about the law that we see right now in real terms are hurting the nation, because the more people are like, politics, I don't get that. What's posse coma what? I don't get it. Never mind, whatever. Then you don't check in, and you're not actually maintaining the system, and you become a part of your own demise. And so for me, it was easy to make sure that, look, if I want to understand something, I have to really distill it down so that I can explain it in a 2-minute elevator, in a 30-second clip, down the street, wherever I am, to my kids, because they're also who's watching me. And when I was during the whole COVID, during the pandemic, I had a studio in my home. And I remember I was covering the George Floyd murder trial, which I'm clear, not the George Floyd trial. That's Derek Chauvin trial, the George Floyd murder trial. And my kids were on the floor, literally, because it was homeschool.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. They're sitting there watching me explain something. And the why was always the hardest question. Like, I can explain the Constitution, I can recite the amendments, I can explain the different case law. But the hardest question to answer, especially when you have your babies looking at you, why?
You know who taught me that? Larry King.
Really?
Larry King said, God bless the dead, Larry King said, he said, Charlamagne, the toughest question you can ask a person is why.
Why?
Because,
Right.
because people really don't ever think about the
Yeah,
why.
that's right.
Usually they have their talking points or they have their things that they've been taught, but they've never actually thought about the why
Right.
of something.
And it makes you think ahead in the future and explain the past simultaneously. Because the why requires you to explain the way it was, how you've let it be, and also how you could change it. Because in that 1 3-letter word, you're being challenged. It's almost like the real question is, why did you let that happen? Or why is it still that way? Or why haven't we changed it? And you have to think about all those things. And, one of the things I love my job, what I'm doing, is because for me, I would have talked anyway, right? I would have tried to explain anyway. I have a real desire to democratize information because I can't stand elitism and I can't stand people feeling like they don't have a voice because someone took it away. But that why question, man, when it comes to my kids, like my son the other day asked me a question about why the National Guard was there. We were driving by. Why? And why there? I thought, this is going to take a lot to unload. But, I try not to shy away from my kids when they ask a question because when they're asking it, they're ready to receive the information. Even though sometimes, it breaks my heart. I think of my kids' childhood, whether this is right or wrong, you guys, I think of it like a museum, right? And there are museum floors and wings, and I'm navigating one area. I'm like, okay, it's time to go to this wing. And all of a sudden something happens, and I'm on the third floor trying to explain the exhibit in front of me, trying to make sure they realize what to do or what not to do. And I'm not always prepared in those moments. And so I just try to be very confessional about what I do and do not know and try to find the answers.
So what is the why to why the National Guard is there? Because I'm sure there's a letter of the law answer.
Yeah.
But what's the why?
Well, the why they're saying they're there is because of the crime rate in D.C. And the only way they believe they can change it is to have the presence of the National Guard to try to deter crime or to supplement what the cops are doing. What the other reason is legally is that they have the ability to do so in Washington, D.C. It's not a state. It's not a territory. And the president of the United States has a lot of power there. So much so that other governors and other states are thinking to themselves, well, how can we stop it from happening in our own states? But the reality is he has power to do so for a certain amount of time, 30 days. If there's an emergency situation, they can do it. He wants to delay it or prolong it longer than that. But the reason they're probably having it in reality is because politically it is advantageous to show that you are tough on crime. And Democrats have a very difficult road ahead trying to, on the one hand, explain the problems of a police state and the presence of the National Guard a la civil rights era with people coming into your towns, and also using data to say, no, I don't know how you feel, but here's a number. Does this number make you feel better? Here's a number, right? This is better. And they're trying to capitalize on that as Republicans.
I was going to ask, do you think the judicial system could be fair with everything going on in the world with social media and television is where it is? Because, you look at some of these cases and a lot of times people get wrong information, misinformation, and it's difficult to take that out of your mind if you're a juror because you already see most of the things that's happened. Yeah. So could it possibly be fair anymore?
The bane of my existence in trial was Law and Order. That damn dun-dun sound and everything else, right?
Yep.
Why? Because people have an expectation about the ability to meet your burden of proof, number one, right? Every crime you think has a video, a DNA sample. You can have everything solved in 46 minutes with commercial breaks and Sam Waterston walking, is ready to go. That hurts the ability of a real and reality-based case. You don't have all that information all the time. So that's hard to be able to meet your burden of proof. On the other hand, it helps to make it a little bit more fair if we have access to technology and you don't use it, or that you have the cameras and you didn't find it, or you had and knew about a form that many people who are armchair lawyers know about now and say, shouldn't there be this form from this FBI agent? Because I saw this and such and such and such and such. And the answer is yes, there probably should have been. Now you have a more fair system in that way. But also you have people who are getting misinformation, and people have this tendency, if it's in writing, it must be true. That's why scam artists are so successful, right? I have an authoritative voice. I'm telling you this. I'm asking a question. And therefore they think this must be real. And people are getting scammed in real time on misinformation, but then they refuse to let their ego down to say, what, I could be mistaken. I could be wrong. But it goes back to mistrust. You get misinformed if you don't trust the source. We kill the messenger every single day because the messenger, has been inaccurate at times. But in a 24/7 news cycle like I'm in, sometimes you are informing, but that's just part of the story. It's not the wrong story. It's the beginning of the story, right? You look at, say, a trial, for example. If you judge an entire trial by the charge or the arrest, you never get to the fairness part of it. You just say, they got him.
Mhm.
They wouldn't have stopped him if they didn't have something. But there's so many things that go into that, whether it's, was it a reasonable stop? Did they have probable cause? Was it racial profiling? Do they have evidence? Is it the right person? Do they have the right people to testify? Let alone, do they actually have the burden of proof met? So fairness is so flexible, unfairly and unreasonably. But really, it's in the eye of the beholder. But in a way, that's kind of how the jury of our peers envisioned it. Because I want your take, I want your take, I want your take, I want your take. And hopefully, the result is fairness.
I was gonna ask, when you look at trials, like you did a lot of coverage on the Diddy trial.
Yeah. So did you, sis?
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, excited.
But from the beginning, right? There were times where you did make predictions or just like follow the story as it went. Was there any time where you flat out were like, this is ridiculous, they're overcharging him, and you wanted to say that but couldn't?
I did say it, and I could. But you're right to question the ability to be as vocal and as forthright, particularly in an anchor position, right? When I was just being a contributor, I had a different role, right? Because then I could be a little bit more flexible. I'm still very honest and candid, but I have to moderate a conversation where I can't answer every question that I'm asking other people. So sometimes I agree with the person who's answering it, and sometimes I don't agree with the person who's answering it. I try to say that. But one thing that was really bothering me about that trial in particular is, and you can set aside, frankly, all the backstory of violence. That's hard to even say because there's a huge backstory of violence there.
And y'all broke the video.
We broke the video, but they didn't charge that. And I think what happened in that case is it's that prosecutorial discretion that is very difficult to navigate. On the one hand, just because you can do something, should you? And the reason you have to balance that test is because everything one government prosecutor says binds the next one. And so you can imagine the cases you go in and you didn't even know that somebody before you came in and argued something to the court, but now whatever that judge heard is now assigned to you. I have walked into courtrooms before and done a sentencing and argued my case. I just said, well, yeah, but the government hasn't always take that. That's a wrong position. They just said that 20 minutes ago. You're like, well, who said that? The government. Which prosecutor? The government. And so you're tied to that. So one of the issues of having that case is that the new standard to bring RICO for that type of case? Were there other matters to bring or other cases to bring, other charges? And should we have caught it much sooner? Why wasn't the original case brought? Why were the violence cases not brought sooner? And what message does that send in the long run to victims that you try to bring in and tell them, because it's a grind, I want you to testify. It's worth it. Please, you're arguing not for yourself, but the next person down the line doesn't want to be victimized. You try to convince that person to come forward. Well, now you wonder if a very public trial and the person comes forward and tells the most intimate, horrific details of their life. How much harder is it now for the prosecutor to come back and say, no, forget what you saw. You should still go forward because it will still matter theoretically in the end. It's just a harder case. And so, we don't go up there and say, you are a private attorney. I've been a private attorney before, but as a prosecutor, you represent the state or the jurisdiction or the country. And so even if that person doesn't want to go forward, there's a callousness you have to have that says, well, I'm not here for you. I'm thinking about the next person who does not want it to be them. But now it makes it harder.
But what do you? Okay.
I was going to ask. You were an assistant
U.S. attorney.
U.S. attorney. When you saw that, because remember they made a big deal about it being all white women that were prosecuting. Did you feel like race played a card?
I think that race had a very big part in the assessment of this trial and the court of public opinion, because people thought, why this particular person? Is it because this is a black man who's achieved a certain level of income? Is this the harkening back to the highfalutin Negro syndrome that they would try to put on? The Mann Act use in terms of how that was looked at. Remember, that was the case involving, Jack Johnson, who was a boxer, who was convicted of it for having had the audacity to date a white woman who happened to also be a prostitute at one time and then married somebody else as well. So I wonder if that was a part of how people perceived it. But there is always going to be, with the messenger for a jury, how condescending you might appear, how judgmental you might come across. And there were certainly elements where I found myself wondering, watching the jury and watching the presentation of evidence, how did that read? For example, when someone would say something like,
he took the cum and rubbed it on his nipples.
right. As an example, yes.
Out of all the things, that's
Out of all, I mean, that came to mind, but or
Mm-hmm.
that might be a comment, and the person would say, like, well, who would ever do that? That's just very sort of disgusted by it. Now, you could be disgusted by it. Maybe it's your thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, in this jury, they weren't asked that question. I don't know in this jury of 12 or however many people, how many of you might get off on that, or how many of you might feel as though, well, you shouldn't be in my bedroom, so don't judge that. Why are we here about that? And so you always run the risk of coming across as, whether actually as a Black prosecutor or not, as a Karen, as somebody who knows better than you and is going to elevate it to the authorities.
Wow.
And you have to balance that. They were good prosecutors, though. But I think just the image of and how it was portrayed, especially outside of the courtroom in the court of public opinion, you cannot separate race and power and sex and rock and roll in that instance.
You think they got it right?
The jury?
Mm-hmm.
Based on the presentation of evidence, there was no other result. And I was surprised that so many people who weren't inside the courtroom every day and weren't watching it and maybe were reading transcript thought, there's no way he can't be convicted of RICO. And I thought, well, based on what's been presented, you are making people connect so many dots. And RICO is complex, you guys, right? It's not just your average, walk by someone's, bar and say, it's a shame you have some nice windows here. Someone's going to blow them up unless you pay this amount of money and pay this person, like a mob boss head or mob boss, whatever. It's much more complicated. You got to bridge all these gaps. And when they didn't call people like the right-hand men and women of Diddy, I wondered if the jurors thought, well, I've heard a lot about these people. Why am I not seeing any of them?
Yeah, why is it a one-man RICO?
Yeah, why is that? And the thing is, you could technically, one person for conspiracy is enough. But again, back to your question about how fairness operates and how the law, people have so many questions about how can that be and is that fair? And in a way, we all become sort of the 13th juror. And we have our minds going, all right, in the grand scheme of things, why are you so focused on this? Why this? Right or wrong, that's their question.
Well, let me ask one other question. So what he was charged with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he should have got a bond, or do you think that he should still be sitting there now? Because when they did research, they said anybody with this type of charge usually gets a slap on the wrist, community service, a weekend in jail. But it seems like for Diddy,
Fed charges? I ain't never heard no community service for no Fed charge.
for prostitution.
You mean to leave, pay it until you sentence in October,
Correct.
right? So normally, if it's a very violent crime, you are held until you're sentenced because the expectation is you're going to be sentenced. So why not just don't get used to being out?
But it wasn't violent.
Right.
What he was charged
And
with.
that's important, the point you raised, because the conviction was not a crime of violence. It didn't even require coercion like, say, sex trafficking did. But because the lawyers argued as a given, yeah, he was violent. We didn't charge him with that. The judge said, well, this could qualify under the umbrella of the types of matters that are violent. By your own admission, counsel.
Even though he wasn't charged.
Even though he wasn't charged. Now, why there's a fairness issue here is because they tell the jury at the beginning, the attorney's arguments, and they're not evidence. You cannot consider what the attorney says, right? But the judge did. The judge considered the fact, he said, well, he was violent. Yes, that happened in the hotel lobby or the hotel hallway. That absolutely happened. But he can actually look at those things to hold the person longer. Although I do wonder if in holding him now, it makes the judge appear that much more objectively harsh. Therefore, when he sentences, if it's less than what the prosecution wants, you can't accuse him of going light and soft on Diddy, right?
What do you think he's going to get as a former federal prosecutor?
I would be surprised if it went beyond 2 or 3 years, with 1 year being credited to his time already in. The reason for that is, although you have 10 years per charge, normally you wouldn't run those consecutively, like where that's, back to back up to 20, because the nature of the crime. And because he's a first-time convicted offender in this context, sentencing guidelines have kind of a chart that says this crime gives you this point, this other conviction gives you this point, and now I have a little category, now you're over here, and you're in this range. The judge can still say less or more, but it would be in line with other cases if it was in the lower end. The prosecution, though, they want their bone and their dogs about it because they have to be for the reasons of going forward and thinking we put these resources in, we feel that he's violent and that there should have been longer and more. So they're going to go hard, but the judge, I think, will be in his right judicial mind if he's in the same range that Diddy has based on not being a prior offender.
Wow.
I'm glad I don't get in trouble no more. I don't understand nothing y'all talking about.
Really?
I'm telling you.
But that's why you hired a lawyer.
Well, yeah, but you see, ain't none of y'all lawyers, but y'all understand this. I'll just be in there like, all right, so does that mean I'm going to jail or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
scary.
I have no, yeah. And then the thing is, right, up here, Lauren reports on a lot of these type of cases, right? And I
She does a good job.
understand, yeah, she does a great job. I understand a little bit when she breaks down things, I understand a lot more of it, right? But have you been following the Tory Lanez case, right?
I have.
Okay, so Lauren just reported something, basically like he's asking for, his team is asking for evidence to be resubmitted, right? Do you feel like, just with your expertise, right, that is smart, or could it be something there, or are they just beating a dead horse at this point?
No, you have to exhaust every avenue you possibly can. And even though people think that the conviction is the end of the story until you get home, really, you're fighting from the time you're convicted to the time that you actually get out, because you really want everything to be analyzed. You want to suggest that the prosecution knew something and didn't tell you, right? You want to suggest that the cop was a dirty cop, that there was evidence that didn't come in, that the jury should have heard this, but they didn't hear it. That's important because all of those things and all those arguments you make when you're in a trial, you're objecting to all those things, they really become placeholders. You object because on appeal, if you didn't, you can't raise them ever again. And then it becomes the end of the road for that defendant. So he needs to try to submit whatever he can for his own ability to try to get out of prison. Doesn't mean it's successful. And judges and appellate courts always know, they know, okay, you're going to tell me that this piece of evidence should have come in but didn't, or this evidence was heard hearsay-wise, was allowed in, but it shouldn't have been there. And they get almost like callous to people in their arguments that they make. And that's why you think about the lifetime positions that people have as judges sometimes. It can be a good or a bad thing because they've heard it all, right? Imagine having a teenager and they're like, oh, nothing. They have that look on their face like they wrong. And you're like, right? And you're like, really? I haven't been a teenager before. I haven't. Like my son's like, I need to close the door in my bedroom. I'm like, really? I haven't been 12 before. Keep the door open. No.
Right.
No. What do you mean? He thinks he's slick on something. No, I know what's gonna happen, or I think I know. So I haven't.
Mom.
I mean, yes, damn, mom. My son is beautiful.
That's right.
And I see these girls.
Oh, you didn't think you had a girl in the room? Oh, okay.
No, not in the room. Oh, I'm not that mom. There would never be a girl in the room in my house.
Okay.
No. This is my daughter or grandma. Absolutely not. No. But you think they know full well. They think they're being slick. And a lot of judges have that mentality of, oh, that's cute. Oh, really? Is that what happened to you? Or are you just guilty? And so he has to exhaust everything for his own really legal peace of mind.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean there's anything there.
Yeah, when you're sitting down for 10 years, you're trying every
got
day to
time.
get out.
I get a lot of prison mail and a lot of conversations with people who really, they follow the news and they hear about, this prosecutor getting fired or this cop having this case. And they go, that was my person. What does that mean for me? And the reality is it could mean nothing, but it could mean something.
I want to ask one more Diddy question before.
Yeah.
Of course you do. It's
No,
hard to get him off
because
Diddy.
you talk about it
It's hard to get him off Diddy, Lauren. It's hard to get him off Diddy.
Pause. I want to ask one question. We see his attorneys come out, and to me, it doesn't seem like they're doing a good job when they're talking about Diddy wants to come out and do Madison Square Garden again, and just talking too much. Do you feel that way as well?
Try shutting up a lawyer. That's number one, right? And that's part of it. But I think they want the impression that this is such a minor offense that he should be able to do that, right? You wouldn't tell that for a murder suspect. You wouldn't be like, oh, well, when he gets out, let's do Meadowlands, right? No, you wouldn't do that. But you're talking about someone like Diddy, who their counsel wants to project the image that this is so minor. Come on,
And
come on. That they want that to be heard by the court,
But
and the
wouldn't
court
you do
watched
that
it.
after sentencing?
You would think they would do that after, but remember, they're building their case, and they know a public case of this stature is very different than the regular rigmarole. Very different. The choices that are probably made, the amount of eyes on it, the celebrity factor. People think, oh, they'll get a sweetheart deal because they're celebrity. Oftentimes, I mean, you got more heat on the prosecutors and the defense to do this case a certain way because they don't want the impression that they are giving anyone a pass. And the defense team, remember, they have other cases. They've got the Luigi Mangione case, right, coming up. They know full well they've got a jury pool that's going to be hearing from them in New York, where they're going to want the impression that they are advocates and zealous advocates throughout the duration of any case. And they want the impression of no big deal.
Wow.
What he said about what he just asked you about Diddy's lawyers.
Yeah.
Does one just say that, or could they be getting that from their client?
They could be.
Lawyers just go and say things on their client's behalf like that without even checking with them, or
My impression is that nothing is just said without Diddy's involvement. Right. And that's a good thing. You want his buy-in. I don't know that he has agreed to that statement, but you want your client's buy-in because you need to instruct them not to be their own worst enemy. And there has to be a collaboration about that. You know, you have a lawyer to be your advocate, not to be your echo, because your echo gets you in trouble. It said what you said, but your advocate is helping you to spin what you have just said so that you're not going to hurt yourself in the end. And so on the one hand, his lawyer saying it means they can be like, I didn't say that, Your Honor. I take it seriously. I'm in the class. I'm doing the work. That's them. On the other hand, if he buys it, Your Honor, I'd like to move on with my life, as my attorneys have said. So it gives you enough cover.
Just language.
It gives you language. It gives you cover. And that's your job of your lawyer, because there's a myth that defense lawyers are like, they approach it and go, I'll only do this if you tell me. Did you do it? Did you really do it? Because my conscience tells me this. In reality, they're like, okay, here's the charge. Don't tell me. But can I prove it? What might there be out there that I don't know about that proves what they said? It's a different conversation, and that's how they're advocating. You know what I mean?
See, I learned that from Power. So
There you go. There you go.
Yes, this is good.
There you go.
Do you like being a moderator or an anchor more? And the reason I ask is because sometimes you have people on and you're way more interesting than the people that you're hosting. So what do you like more, moderating or anchoring?
Thank you for saying sometimes. I think you have to be both. I mean, an effective moderator is the anchor. It keeps people there. The job is not just to be like, vanilla. And now you talk. No opinion? Okay, great. Now you talk. I can't say anything? Okay, here's my muzzle again. The point of an anchor in my book is to make sure that the conversation goes in the direction, it stops where the people want to hear it, right? Other shows can float all around and do whatever they want to do. But I am an anchor that grounds the conversation in what the people want to hear and what they actually care about. By the time you get to 11 o'clock at night, you all have heard everything. You probably have you've chewed over, so maybe you heard about it, maybe you didn't, but you have an opinion on something. So now you have the why. Now you've got the real why questions that come out. And that's where I think an effective moderator and anchor comes in. But it is hard sometimes. I tell you, sometimes I have blood in my mouth some days, I'm biting my tongue, because I'm like, well, that didn't make any sense what you just said. And I say that, but I have to be diplomatic, right? And other times you have to get people's opinions in, even when I believe they're the wrong opinion because they're based on misinformation. And so that's where my anchor comes down. The anchor comes down again. Stop. Let's not move past this, because people hear it in writing. People hear it. They believe it. They see it. They trust it. No one contradicts it. It's fact. So I've got to, at every level, stop it from happening. But it's hard.
Hell yeah.
It's hard.
What was your journey like when you first decided to get onto TV? As like you would just pop in sometimes and kind of be like a legal analyst?
Yeah.
Because you're so in tune with like pop culture and like you understand what's happening. You're on social media. And a lot of times the older networks or older anchors, they don't like to accept that at all. So was your journey welcoming when you came in, or were you...
Was my journey? Is it welcoming now to me? Let me think about that. Well, I didn't come at this like most people did. So when I left the DOJ, I didn't really have a plan to go into television. It wasn't like I was thinking my whole life I want to be on television. If anything, I thought I would do scripted TV. I did stage acting. I thought maybe I'll do theater as part of that'd be fun to do. I wanted to follow my passions. But then my husband came home one day after I had my first and second child. And he came home one day, they're back to back, and he was putting a camera on the car. And he calls me out to tell me there's this camera. I go, I don't need this. What is this? I don't need a camera. What is this? What's going on? And it was the same year of Mac Brown, Trayvon Martin, and Sandy Hook, frankly, happened that year. And I said, what is this? And my husband's from the Bronx, right? And
the craziest people in America come from the Bronx and all of Florida.
And sexiest. Well, there you go. There you go, because it's my man.
That's right.
And he's very stoic, not emotional. Like, I'm the hurricane, and he's like the grounding force. And he had tears in his eyes. And he's like, baby, it's not really for you. It's also for me. Because if I'm ever stopped by police, I want you to know what really happened. And I mean, I was a prosecutor then, and I was the one he was asking questions about, can they do this and can they do that? And I thought I was giving answers that not only made sense, but emotionally resonated. Like, okay, I can accept that. But it turns out in that moment, it was very clear that it didn't, because there was an inevitability in his mind. This is his demise. And I thought, I'm maybe an exception to the rule for him, but it won't save his life. And so I remember that day thinking, I need to make a change, because I have this muzzle on in DOJ as a prosecutor. You can't speak to the press, you can't inform people, you can't do any stuff. And selfishly, between him and my baby boy, who's the oldest, and then my daughter, I thought, selfishly, I love them so much, I have to save their lives. And the only way I knew how was to use my mind as a weapon and as a tool. And again, 5'3.5", like my stature wasn't going to do it, but a platform could. And so I didn't have a plan other than to pick up and leave one day. And I made it, because I'm dramatic, I made it MLK Day. So I could say free at last. I left the building. People laughed at me. They said, my supervisor said.
You actually said that on the way out?
I sure did.
Free at last?
Free at last, because it was January 15th.
Wow.
And my supervisor laughed. He was, Laura, when you come back, could you write your review in advance so I don't have to do it when you come back? And I thought that was kind of a taunting. I just couldn't do it. And I remember having nothing. Like I had my mind. I had my husband.
You had a dream.
I had a dream. I didn't know how to form it. I had a Panera Bread. Thank you, Emma. Okay. I had
so serious.
I had a mountaintop. All things. Thank you very much. Had the whole stuff. I had a Panera Bread in my neighborhood. And I literally had put a business card into a Firehouse Subs, like, win subs for a year bucket. And I won the year of Firehouse Subs. I kid you not.
Wow.
And that was like, I was nursing my daughter still. Wow. My son was only about a year or so. They were 18 months apart. He's a little over a year. And I remember like posting up in a Panera Bread, saying to myself, now how do I go from, I want to speak truth to power by telling people what the truth is. How do I do that? I don't know anyone in media. I don't know anything about it. What can I do? And I just sat there day in, day out, writing and trying to get my op-eds written, going on radio. I was on Sirius XM. Karen Hunter helped me out. And she put me on to do like commentary. I didn't know anything. My daughter, on one of my first episodes with them, my daughter was nursing because I didn't have daycare with. I couldn't leave. And, as a woman, I wasn't comfortable, even though I trusted my husband, I believe in him. I couldn't just
leave the baby,
leave the babies, or I mean, I couldn't just say, you take care of all the finances and I'll figure this out. I had to do something. And so I remember having my kids with me at one point and just figuring it out. But that turned into television and doing hits, and then consistently never slipping, consistently being authentic in the information, being truthful, having the wit, having the charisma, being able to, slap down the disrespect, which often happened. People would sort of do the pat you on the head, and I look young, and this is 10 years later, so I looked even younger, and people want to make you feel as though you don't know as much as they do, because you saw the Watergate movie and they lived through the Watergate era. And you're like, well, you know what I mean? But now I'm like, well, I remember saying one person, I said, well, I get that, but neither of us was here for the Constitution. And so what's your point, right? But having to do that on air, having to make in that moment, be your own champion and just do what I tried to do for other people, for myself. But that was a 10-year, and it's still ongoing. To this day, I have to figuratively put on a Coats jersey before I walk into my own studio, because there are people who will every day try to, you think getting to the top, if I'm there or not, I don't know, but getting to a top is hard. Try staying there. And so I just go back. I sign every new deal I ever do. Whenever I have a book deal, whatever I'm doing, I make them sign it in Panera. So I'm sitting there looking and going, I remember with my daughter nursing, not knowing what the hell I was doing.
Dope.
And I get a Firehouse sub, the engineer, turkey with mushrooms and some Swiss cheese, because it was free for a year, which might explain sometimes the waistline, but whatever. And that's how I remember and keep grounded, because I hope I will never be the person who's more comfortable in the upper echelons than walking through my own neighborhood.
That's right. I got so many questions, but
About Panera?
I mean, just in general, like, because as I'm hearing you talking and I'm hearing things that's coming to me, Loren said something, and you were talking about being welcomed, and I thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, there are a lot of cliques, it seems like, in this media space, you know, and it's like you'll have groups of women that are in news and sports and everything. They all hang out, and then you see groups of women over here. I don't never see you with them cliques.
I'm a mommy.
Some of them are too,
Well, they mommy differently than I mommy.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with the way that I'm social. I'm social on my own terms, and I really am somebody who values, like, I love my remember whens. If you can't look at me and have a remember when moment, you're not going to be part of my everyday crew, right?
I like that.
And because I think so many people, especially in this industry, they want to post their life. I want to live my life. And with my children in particular, I'm sensitive, right? So I can't guarantee you that I'm not going to come find you if you post a bad comment about my child. But I have a mortgage, so I can't do that sort of stuff, right? I can't be that scrappy. So I'm sensitive about preserving, like, my peace by keeping my life private. But on the other hand, it's part of the job. It's part, and I wrestle with this every single day, because I'm at as many events as probably anyone else. I see it as many people. I just don't post it. And that can be a problem for people. They think, oh, well, and that translates to something. But and I'm not always the most, I'm very outgoing, but I love my circle and my life, and they are full of remember whens. And I love that. But the cliques, they're real. And the cliques, I think, can sometimes, and, you know, I'm cool with everybody. Doesn't mean that I'm not cool with them. But the cliques can sometimes operate to make you think that where you are is the top. And they want you to compare and think, well, if you're not doing what you're doing, then you're doing nothing. And in my mind, I let you climb. Your peak is not my peak. Climb. But just don't step on me on the way, because then you will be talked to about it. Like, I'm nice. And I'm friendly, and I have I'll speak and everyone. And I'm always going to be very, especially among my peer group, very respectful until.
And I think a lot of those cliques have forgotten those neighborhoods you still want to remember.
Yeah, look, I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. I grew up in Minnesota. So what I look like? Acting like I didn't, right? Or, you know, I went to Princeton. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm something I'm not. I'm not going to, you know, I grew up, I'm the youngest girl. We're all lawyers. My two sisters, all lawyers. Like, I'm not going to pretend that we have not climbed as well. But I'm also the daughter of a man who grew up in foster care. I'm a daughter of, you know, my mom's parents left North Carolina to go to Stamford, Connecticut to work in the homes of people who become my clients when I was a lawyer, right? I know where I come from. I'm a Black woman in America, African American in this country. And so when I see people trying to make you think that you're only phenomenal if you are the exception to your race, I'm not having it. And I don't want to be involved in it. But I do tell you that the clicks can make you. Sometimes you feel low. I mean, this is a very lonely field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, there are times when I absolutely feel very lonely because I don't see what I give out return to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like everyone in the end will have to reckon with whatever their own demons are, and I'm not the person to point them out every single day. But it's lonely sometimes. That's why I turn to my family a lot and my remember whens. And I am very discerning about who I let into my private thoughts because there are so many people who will take that just enough to try to turn it against you. And I'm just not that interested. I didn't come into it because I wanted to be famous. I didn't come in because I wanted to wear makeup. I already wore makeup. I was already cute as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I already dressed well. You know, I already took care of myself. I already, had the shine that I wanted in my career. I was very proud of what I was doing. I came into it because it was a love letter to my family. So I'm not going to rip it up just to have a follower.
I want to go back to that because you said something. I don't know why my brain thought of this, but you talked about your husband putting the cameras in the car.
Yeah.
And you were a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
It made me think of Queen and Slim. That's the thing that frustrated me about that movie. I'm sorry, Lena, I got to get this off. You are a prosecutor. If you was in that situation and the cop shot at you and your man, as a prosecutor, would your mind say, I'm going on the run?
I would not run, but I don't necessarily have the same relationship interaction with the police that they did. I don't always have the same fears. I have a very different take. Not that I trust police officers inherently, but I don't distrust them inherently. Mm-hmm. And so I would think I could fight. I would think I could fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would everyone think they could fight it? Would a 16-year-old version think I could fight it? Would a 60-year-old version think I could fight it? I don't know, but I would try to fight.
Because in the movie, she was a lawyer.
But why not fight?
That's what I thought.
But that's a movie. I don't know.
Charlamagne.
I know. I
It's
always
movie,
wondered about
but
that.
it's still
I don't know
about,
why
like,
you made me think of that.
It could be real life. It could be a real life situation. Now, would Panera Bread you fight?
Panera Bread would have nursed that orange scone all day on the run. That's what would happen on the run. But that's the thing. Every year I feel different. I know people used to say that you grow. No, I still love it.
Oh.
Still love it. But every year I feel different. You don't go to Panera. One day I'm gonna tell you, come back like, now I own all Panera Breads. That's the end of the story. At some point.
Amazing. I believe it too.
But one day, I think you're just different. Who you would be, and what you have, and what your optimism level dictates what you're willing to fight for. That's right. I'm still in the optimistic range where I'm like, I can make this work.
Yeah. And salute to Lena because she'll call me and check me in 2 seconds.
Absolutely.
I want to ask this too. You were a federal prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice during the Bush and Obama administrations. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to ask you is, we hear people say things like Donald Trump is taking us back. He's, all these executive orders have, repealed these rights and he's taking us back to this time. People will come up here and ask, like, what year we think we living in? I'm like, we're in 2025. But I want to ask you, simply to the people that are listening, what rights are being stripped away from us right now?
Number one, voting.
Okay.
Voting, it's almost like you think about your health.
Mm-hmm.
If your health fails, nothing else matters. Mm-hmm. If voting goes away, almost nothing else you want to argue about is important enough to counteract that. Because if you don't have a say, then you cannot speak later in a way that's actually going to fall on the right ears. And voting does that. And so the rolling back of rights, when I was in the Civil Rights Division, the voting section, we still had Section 5, which is the formula you use to determine whether in an area of the country that traditionally violated civil rights laws or had skewed voting rights and laws that impacted Black people, period. There's a formula you'd use to figure out whether that person, that jurisdiction was qualified to have to ask for permission for any change they wanted to make. When I was there, that was still there. That's gone. The formula's gone because the Supreme Court said it's outdated. We're in this sort of a post-racial world. We've had a Black president now, so the same rules don't apply. So therefore, Congress, think of a new formula. And while you take your sweet time, everything goes astray. Well, that was the entryway point of why everything else is starting to fail in terms of Section 2, which is the race-based and gerrymandering aspects of it. So that's the number one thing that people are rolling back. They're voting. Number two, don't sleep on the Fourth Amendment reasonable search and seizures and stops. You know, anytime you hear about a police brutality case of a driver or someone in their home or wherever it is, you're talking about the Fourth Amendment, what right the officer has to stop you, question you, touch you, arrest you, all those things. The more power you give officers without having to substantiate that power based on probable cause or the Constitution, the more you live in a place where that goes away. So, for example, with the National Guard or the FBI that's present in Washington, D.C., where I am, the question is not just whether they're supposed to be there because it's an emergency, quote unquote, but whether they're going to abide by the same principles under the Fourth Amendment. The standard right now is it's only unreasonable if a reasonable officer would feel it's unreasonable. Not whether you think it's reasonable, not whether you or you, whether a reasonable officer would think so, which incentivizes people to say, well, I'm not going to call out my fellow officer because it could come back to haunt me. So I'm going to have sort of a, yeah, it's reasonable, kick him in the head. I mean, I can see why that could happen. Shot him accidentally. Oh, well, you know, I can see why that would happen. And they become the reasonable standard. So that's what the cops know. There's already that issue. Now you add the National Guard, you add in the FBI, who they don't do average traffic stops.
Yeah, they're not even equipped to do that kind of work.
And they're not, but also not necessarily used to adhering to the same standards because the nature of their work is so much more of an emergency that they have to be a little bit more aggressive at times, they say. So now trying to balance all that out means that the more accepted it becomes that law enforcement has power, the less you have to say, wait, I have my rights. You can't do that to me. More it becomes laughed at. So I think those are the two areas, to me, that are the most problematic. There are others.
Voting in the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you for joining
Thank
us.
you,
I got
guys.
one final question.
Okay.
Uh-oh, there better not be a Panera Bread
no.
question.
Or MLK, grow up.
Well, nobody said that. Everybody.
Now I'm curious.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I got the two, well, one question I can put in one. So when you didn't get Jeopardy, right, you kept your response to how you felt very diplomatic, but a lot of people feel like you weren't in the thought, even though he said you should be, because you were a Black woman. Did you feel like it was a race thing, or the reason why you weren't even considered as like in the guest hosting slot or just called in to even try out?
I thought it was bullshit that I wasn't asked to try out. I thought it was something that was the machinations behind the scenes where people decide who their heroes and celebrities ought to be, and merit didn't matter. And that's how I honestly feel about it. I feel like, so whether it was a race, I don't know as much as it was a race thing as much as it wasn't a you thing. Now, who I am is a Black woman. So if it's me, then it was that. But I was always very resentful of it, and I still am, because I think it'd be much easier to have a job where the answers are already in front of me, like on Jeopardy, anything else. But as they say, everyone's journey is their journey. For me, I was honored that he was specific. He was kind when I reached out to thank him. I was grateful to have a chance to get to know him a little bit during that, but it wasn't his call. But here's what that told me, and the lesson I never forget. The fact that it wasn't Alex Trebek's call, who'd replace him, told me I have to examine power differently, right? And I have to examine who really is in control very differently. And in many ways, I'm happy that it happened, because I approach all my negotiations and business dealings that if my name's on something, it belongs to me. And that includes the agency to do with it what I want. And if I had gotten it just because someone's, I think it'd be her, that's great, it'd be her, I might not have approached it the same way. And but I still think it's ridiculous.
I thought Alex died.
He did die. He did die before he passed. Long before he passed, he asked who he'd want to replace him, and he said he passed away from pancreatic cancer, sadly. Which is just my grandmother had the same thing, and it was just it's what a horrible disease and cruel. But I was honored to even be mentioned in it. But I still feel some kind of way about it.
Before he died, he had said that she's one of the people that should be considered.
Oh, dope.
And
dope.
but we never even got to see her be considered.
Wow.
But I was told when I spoke, maybe I'm telling too much information. When I did try to fight for it, they said, well, maybe a particular person whose name I can't even recall, he's that irrelevant to me now.
Nah, call that nigga out.
I honestly can't remember his name.
Don't remember.
I can't remember his name, but I remember he was like, but you know what? If you can be my assistant on a podcast.
Wow.
No, to research on a podcast. I was like, I'll be your assistant to research on a podcast. Who do you think you're talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Not me.
What game show did Alex see you host that he?
I hadn't. He watched me on CNN.
Wow.
And I did radio. I did Sirius XM for a long time, and so he was a radio guy himself when he started out. And so he said that he respected the work that I did and the mind, and thought it would be a beautiful match.
Wow.
That was really cool.
That's it.
Really cool.
And my last question, did that help in how you navigated? Because people started having a conversation about you and Caitlin Collins when people felt like you were shorted in that situation with getting a full-time anchor role.
Well, I had the anchor role. You mean I didn't have the 9 o'clock hours? You mean okay? I think people have a tendency to always ask, and why her and not this person, and they assume that that there is beef. But I believe that I'm where I'm supposed to be in this moment, and let everyone climb the way they want to climb. Let people enjoy the fruits of their labor, because I enjoy mine. But the work is so far from being done. So I think, where I am and where I'll end up are two different things.
By far, the strongest lineup on cable news. I can literally go from Anderson Cooper, it's Aaron Burnett, Anderson Cooper, to Caitlin, to Abby, and then you. Mm-hmm. That's by far the strongest lineup on.
Well, we appreciate that. I mean, I know at CNN are very grateful for the audience, because, trust issues can change people, right? And also there is the emergence, not even negative CNN, but there's the emergence of new media, right? We talk about this, that, there is the old guard of legacy media who some people think is all that should be. And then there are people who actually have it right. I include myself in that mindset of, I want to access as many people as possible where you are. And it doesn't need to be necessarily on the medium that you think it is, but I hope that our audience continues to grow and that people appreciate every person on our lineup for what they bring, because every single person contributes in a different and unique way. And the format of the show is unique and different in a way that helps people to find their truth seekers. And that's important. And if you don't feel that way, then you should tell people, give people a chance to hear what you need and what you want. But I don't want to be like in an ivory tower where I'm like, here's the way that news does. I'm not stuffy. I'm not, I'm not trying to be Walter Cronkite. I don't want to be. I want to be Laura Coates, and I'm cool with that. But what I don't want to be is who you think Laura Coates ought to be. I am at the 11 o'clock hour. I hold it down as an anchor. I'm strong-willed about that, but I think there's always room for improvement.
My last question, you're a mother, you're a wife, a former prosecutor, you on CNN. When do you have time to be this fun, ratchet Laura Coates I keep hearing about? Everybody that I know that's hung out with you and kicked it with you, they see something else.
That's crazy. He got you up here to call out your ratchet.
I'm just saying. Especially I saw people come back from the vineyard and they was like, "Yo, Laura Coates though."
Ratchetity is crazy.
I hope I'm the same person, but you have me talking about the Constitution here. But I really, I make time for fun. I make time for love and joy, because
I ain't even started the whole interview, but that's just like,
what happened was, right? Ratchet. No, you know what? I got to be who I can be. And I want there to be a through line. The best advice I ever got was from Steve Harvey, who said to me that, Laura, I am the same person no matter where you see me, period. And I hope that that's me. Just might be a little bit different outfit, different hair, different ponytail, different heel color, different lipstick, different eyeliner. But I'm the same person. It's just that, who else? I mean, I would never want to try to be who I was not, but every circumstance does not call for my ratchetness.
Word.
Some really do. And sometimes I'm like, oh, you think this is not? Oh, let me take my earrings off a second. Hold on a second. What do you think? Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'm not the one or the two.
Laura Coates.
I love it.
Thank you guys.
Well,
Nice
thank you for
to talk to
joining
you.
us this
And don't be
morning.
a stranger, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
pull up on us. Like, there's things that we can, talk
you.
about.
And thank you for
I appreciate
teaching me
it.
some things.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Because you said something earlier. You talked about armchair attorneys, and I feel like we have a lot of those. And I don't know if people are becoming more legally literate or getting worse in understanding the Constitution and our rights. So we need people like you.
Well,
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, and I'm honored to be here, and I respect you all so much. Thank you for letting me come.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's Laura
Thanks, guys.
Coates. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Hold up. Every day I wake up, wake your ass up.
The Breakfast Club.
Y'all finished or y'all done?